Welcome children to English class. Here I am going to conclude chapter 5 Indigo from your English Flamingo textbook. Let's now understand the explanation. Now the peasant saw that he has rights and defenders. He learned courage. Defenders means protectors. Hence after this incident, the peasants understood about their rights. They also got this realization: if somebody would deprive them of their rights, they would have to defend it. Hence, this incident sprouted the seeds of courage, that means to be fearless, in the Indians. Events justified Gandhi's position. Within a few years, the British planters abandoned their estates. Justify, that means marked by some good or legitimate reason. Abandoned, that means deserted or give up. Estates means land or the properties. Reverted, that means return back. It is explained that gradually the circumstances turned to be in favor of Gandhiji. So his position was solidified due to his selfless efforts. The British landlords had to give up their hold over the sharecroppers' property, and thus within few years all the property of the sharecropper peasants were returned back to them. Indigo sharecropping disappeared. So thus the whole issue of the sharecropping of the indigo farmers was disappeared. So there was no more problem of indigo sharecropping. As we are well aware that Gandhiji had never concerned his life to solve only the big political and economic problems of the nation, but he also dedicated his life to uplift the backwardness of a nation. He emerged out to be the champion of the downtrodden people. That's why when he observed the cultural and social backwardness of the Champaran villages, he decided to stay there and worked upon for their upliftment. Thus, he decided that he would sort out to remove the cultural and social backwardness of this region, but that also immediately. He decided to stay for some more time and would put efforts for the rural upliftment and removing the backwardness of the region. He appealed for teachers Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, two young men who had just joined Gandhi as disciples, and their wives volunteered for the work. Appealed means requested, volunteered, that means to offer free service at your own will. Disciples means followers. Volunteer, that means to offer free service at your own wish. Hence, Gandhiji embarked the program to reform the economic and cultural backwardness of the area. So for this, he requested two of his followers, that is Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, to visit Champaran with their wives to start the volunteered program of education in the Champaran villages. Several more came from Bombay, Pune, and other distant parts of the land. Devdas, Gandhi's youngest son, arrived from the ashram, and so did Mrs. Gandhi. Hence, it is informed many other volunteers they also joined in this movement of spreading the education in Champaran. So these people they came from Bombay, Pune to join Gandhiji in his movement. Hence, along with these two followers and their wives, many other volunteers they also came from Bombay, Pune, and other faraway places to join Gandhiji in this movement to spread education in this backward area. Even Mrs. Gandhi, that is Kasturba Gandhiji, and the youngest son of Gandhiji, Devdas, he also arrived from the ashram to provide his help to Gandhiji. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturbai taught the ashram rules and personal cleanliness and community sanitation. Community, that means society. Sanitation, that means cleanliness. Henceforth, it is told primary schools were opened in the 6 villages over there. With the support of all these volunteers and Gandhiji's own family, he set up the primary schools in the 6 villages of the Champaran, where Kasturbai, that is Gandhiji's wife, she started teaching the ashram rules on cleanliness and community sanitation. Health conditions were miserable. Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. Miserable, that means unhappy or painful. Volunteer, that is a person who offers us service free of cost. Hence, after working to spread the education in this backward region, the next Gandhiji noticed the miserable condition of the health of the Champaran people. To improve the poor health of those people, Gandhiji got a doctor to provide his free services for the period of 6 months in the region. 3 medicines were available. Castor oil, quinine and sulfur ointment. Children, as you know, in the olden time, the medical science was not so advanced. So, the doctors used to implement only the Ayurvedic techniques for treating the patients. So, they used to suggest only 3 Ayurvedic medicines for treating the different diseases. So, they used to give only these 3 medicines. So, these were castor oil, quinine and sulfur ointment for the treatment of the patients. Hence, it is said if any patient showed the symptom of the coated tongue, that means he was suffering from some bacteria or typhoid, he was only served with the dose of the castor oil for the treatment. Anybody with malaria fever received quinine plus castor oil. If anybody was suffering with the disease of malaria, he was given the dose of quinine plus castor oil again. Anybody with skin eruption received ointment plus castor oil. Eruption, that means spot or the rashes which appeared suddenly on the skin. Hence, if somebody has the skin problem, so he was again given some ointment plus the mixture of the castor oil. So in this way, very simple medicines and the treatment were given by the doctors in the olden time. Hence, the doctor called by Gandhiji, he used to serve the local people of Champaran with these traditional medicines and started improving their health. Gandhi noticed the filthy state of the women's clothes. He asked Kasturbai to talk to them about it. Filthy means dirty. However, Gandhiji, when he solved the problem of illiteracy and the poor health of the people, next he looked after the cleanliness and the condition of the women of the region. So he gave the charge to the wife to inquire the reason of this filthiness and unhygienic living condition of the women of the region. One woman took Kasturba into her hut. Hence, at the time of the visit, one such poor woman of the region, she took Gandhiji's wife into her home and said, "Look, there is no box or cupboard here for the clothes." So the lady, she showed Gandhiji that there was no box or cupboard in the house to keep the clothes. "The sari I am wearing is the only one I have." To the very surprise of Gandhiji's wife, she informed that she had the single sari which she was wearing that time. So that was the single cloth she had which she was using. During his long stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a long distance watch on the ashram. He sent regular instructions by mail and asked for the financial accounts. Instructions, that means orders or the commands. As it is already informed that Gandhiji had spent more than 1 year to resolve the problems of the indigo sharecroppers. Hence, during this long time of the stay in Champaran, he also kept the long distance vigil, that means watch, on the activities of his own ashram, that is Sevagram. Hence, to monitor the running of his ashram efficiently, he used to send the regular orders, and also he used to give the instructions about the financial matters of his ashram. Once he wrote to the residents that it was the time to fill in the old latrine trenches and dig new ones, otherwise, the old ones would begin to smell bad. Residents means locals, trenches means deep pits. Next, it is told Gandhiji also taught the community sanitation and personal cleanliness rules to the people over there. He taught them how to fill the old latrine trenches and build new ones, as they could spread the smell and also the diseases in the community. As you know, in the olden time, the people were ignorant about the personal cleanliness and community sanitation. So Gandhiji also worked for that. The Champaran episode was a turning point in Gandhi's life. Episode means incident. Turning point. That is the time or the point when some drastic change takes place. However, it is informed that this incident of the indigo sharecroppers of the Champaran region, it brought the important and the drastic change in Gandhi's life. What I did, he explained, was a very ordinary thing. I declared that the British could not order me about in my own country. Even Gandhiji had himself explained by saying that what he did was a very common and ordinary thing. He said, I had put this point before the Britishers that they could not order him in his own country. Further, he added that he had proved this point before the British official that they could not order him in his own country. Children, as you remember, initially he was threatened by the British commissioner to quit Champaran instantly. But he proved with this victory in the Champaran movement that being Indian, they could not give Gandhiji such orders. But Champaran did not begin as an act of defiance. It grew out of an attempt to alleviate the distress of large numbers of poor peasants. Defiance means opposition or disobedience. Alleviate means to ease or to uplift. Distress, that means torture or suffering. So hereby it is informed that Champaran episode had not been the starting of the period of disobedience in the nation. That means that it was not the beginning of the moment of breaking the law and order of the nation, but in fact it was an effort to help out the poor and the suffering peasants. And in fact, this was the effort to start the movement to reduce the sufferings of the numerous poor and tortured farmers. This was the typical Gandhi pattern. His politics were intertwined with practical day to day problems of the millions. Intertwined, that means twisted. This whole movement proceeded with the typical Gandhi style. That means with the practice of non violence and without harming anyone. Hence, this reflected that Gandhiji's politics was only connected with the practical day to day problems of the million poor people. It was genuinely meant to release the poor peasants and the poor people from the exploitation of the British officials. His was not a loyalty to abstractions, it was loyalty to living human beings. Abstractions, that means something which exists only as an idea. Thus, we come to know his politics did not aim at the fulfillment of the ideas or some ideas, but it was mainly concerned for serving the people. Thus, the basic idea of Gandhiji was to serve the humanity. As we concluded, Gandhiji's politics was not aiming at the fulfillment of some particular ideas or concepts, but rather it was concerned for the welfare of the ordinary people. Hence, the basic idea of Gandhiji, it was to serve the living human being. That means to serve the humanity and did their welfare. In everything Gandhi did, moreover, he tried to mold a new free Indian who could stand on his own feet and thus make India free. Hence, it is concluded whatever efforts Gandhiji made, it was only to build up the new free India and the Indian. He wanted to build up such free Indians who could believe in their own strengths and brought the freedom for the country. Early in the Champaran action, Charles Freer Andrews, the English pacifist who had become a devoted follower of the Mahatma, came to bid farewell before going on a tour of duty to the Fiji Islands. Pacifist is a person who promotes peace. Devoted means loyal or sincere. So here in the concluding part of the chapter, here it is told how Gandhiji tried to instill the feelings of self-reliance in the Indian people. So for this, one incident of his life is shared. It's told Charles Freer Andrews was at the high post in the British Army, but he was a true follower of Mahatma Gandhiji. One, he got his duties in the Fiji Islands. So before living there, he came to meet Gandhiji. He wanted to embrace the blessings of Gandhiji before departing for Fiji Islands. Gandhi's loyal friends thought it would be a good idea for Andrews to stay in Champaran and help them. Hence, to see such devotee of Gandhiji, Gandhiji's loyal friends insisted that Gandhiji should take the support of this British follower to stay in the Champaran and fight against the British officials and authorities along with them. Andrew was willing if Gandhi agreed. Even Andrew was also willing to support the Indian people. But Gandhi was vehemently opposed. Vehemently, that means to show very strong feelings or to be angry. Hence, it is told Gandhiji strongly opposed the suggestion of his loyal friends. He said, "You think that in this unequal fight it would be helpful if we have an Englishman on our side. This shows the weakness of your heart. The cause is just and you must rely upon yourselves to win the battle." Cause means reason or object. This Gandhiji replied, though his friends might be thinking the fight would become quite easy if this British officer, Andrew, would come and stand with them to fight against the British landlords. The fight and the movement would become quite easy, but he said it would make the show of the weakness of their hearts. That means it would raise the doubt upon their own confidence in their own abilities. He assured to his friends that their cause, that means their objective, it was quite clear. Hence, he raised the confidence of his loyal friends by giving the assurance as the reason of their battle was quite right. So they had to believe on their own abilities. You should not seek a prop in Mr. Andrews because he happens to be an Englishman. Prop, that means support. Hence, Gandhiji refused the proposal of his friends to take any help from Mr. Andrews. Hence, he said it was their own country's fight. They have to fight by their own. He further said that they did not have to depend upon some Englishman, that is Charles Andrews, to such an extent as how he could fight with his full spirit against his own community for the rights and the cause of the Indian people, as basically he was also some Englishman. Then Gandhiji also advised his loyal friends to believe in their own inner strengths as the reason and the objective of the fight. It was quite clear and fair, so definitely they would win it. Hence, dependency on Charles Andrews would make the show of the weakness of the Indian people. He had read our minds correctly, Rajendra Prasad comments, and we had no reply. Gandhi in this way taught us a lesson in self-reliance. Self-reliance means self-dependence. On getting this advice from Gandhiji to avoid taking any help from Andrew the British. Thus, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who turned to be the first president of a free India, he had commented that moment we had understood that Gandhiji had read the mind set of all his friends. But as Gandhiji was right, that's why they didn't have any reply. Hence, he said, this way Gandhiji had sown the seeds of being self-dependent in the Indian people. In this way, that reply of Gandhiji, it served a lesson of self-sufficiency among the Indian people and his friends. Self-reliance, Indian independence and help to sharecroppers were all bound together. Hence, the seeds of self-dependence and all the efforts and the movements which Gandhiji started to help the sharecroppers of the Champaran, so all they had got interconnected and they had brought the freedom to our nation. That means Champaran episode became symbolic of Indian independence. For all your doubts and the queries, you can make call or text me. For all your doubts and the queries, you can make call or text me.